my friends, and welcome back to another video. My name is Erin and we are going to do a little yearly check-in video. It's pretty much halfway through 2025, which is absolutely insane, terrifying. I don't really want to talk about it, but we are pretty much halfway through the year. So I thought it would be fun to come on and chat about my favorite books so far this year. I have 10 books here and I do feel like these are top contenders to make it onto my end of the year favorites. Now, obviously there's still plenty of 2025 left and plenty of time for me to find out what other books I absolutely love and find new favorites. So that's why these are just kind of my favorite books of the year so far. But I thought it would be fun to come on and chat about how my reading year has been going, talk about books that I found and absolutely loved, and you know, just kind of have a little chatty check-in. We'll go over some of my stats first, just because I feel like that will give you a better idea of like how my reading year has gone so far. So my reading goal for this year was to read 100 books, and I have done that. I have read 109 as of right now, so that's really exciting. I set my goal at 100 because I knew that I would hit it, and I just didn't want to have the pressure of like trying to hit a really big goal that would make me sad if I didn't hit it or make me feel like bad about myself. I wanted it to be an attainable number that I knew would be possible, and that way anything after that is just a bonus. I'm also doing a 2025 pages goal. If you have Storygraph, they do have like a little thing for that as well. And I made my goal for this year to read 60,000 pages, and I am 58% of the way there. I have read 34,956 pages so far this year, which is, that's a lot of pages. It's kind of crazy. So my reading's kind of all over the place this year because I am trying to read different things. I'm not reading solely thrillers and horror this year. I'm actually staying kind of far away from thrillers. I haven't read too many this year because I just feel like, well, as I say that, thriller is one of my top genres, so maybe I'm lying, but I feel like I'm staying away from thrillers this year. But my top genre this year is fantasy so far, which is actually mind-boggling. Manga is my second, third is romance, 4 is thriller, 5 is contemporary, and 6 is horror. So I am reading a little bit more all over the place. I feel like I'm trying to read a bunch of different things, and I am trying to read more of my TBR this year, so that's why I started TBR Slasher, to try to get books off my TBR and read more of my physical TBR, because I am buying books still, not as often, but I would say still pretty frequently, which is not great, but I'm trying to kind of keep it more balanced by reading as many from my TBR as I can. If you haven't seen my TBR Slasher series, I will have a playlist linked down below so you can check that out. So I would say I'm doing a fairly good job of that, but it's been okay. But yeah, my average rating so far is 3.98. So I mean, not amazing. I've had 21 books, I think. Yeah, 21 books I've given a 5-star to, which is actually pretty high, but that does include manga and graphic novels, so not all of those are just books. And then I've only had 12 4.5 and 30 4 stars, which 4-star is usually my most given rating, so I'm not shocked by that. But the other ratings I feel like are really low, so I have had a pretty like positive reading experience this year. I feel like most of my reviews have been more on the positive side than on the negative or like middle of the road side, which is good because last year I felt like I was giving 3 stars to everything. So that's definitely more of a positive direction for my reading this year, which I'm very, very happy about. So like I said, I have 10 books here that I think it's a possibility they could still be on my end of the year favorites. I can't guarantee that because Well, some of them I can guarantee, but most of them I can't guarantee that. I don't know what the rest of the year will hold for me, so I don't want to lock myself down to these 10 books being the only books, but so far these ones are the ones that have stuck with me and I keep thinking about, and I just had a really good, positive experience reading them. So I'm gonna start with the only 4.5 star book in the stack. I included this one because I can't stop thinking about it. I really, really, really loved it. I honestly might bump it up to a 5 star. And it solidified me loving this author, which I kind of already knew, but I'll explain it. This book is Swordart by T. Kingfisher, and I love T. Kingfisher's horror, so I decided to try her fantasy books because I was like, if I'm trying to read fantasy and I already know I like her horror books, why not try fantasy and see how that works out? Well, I'm so glad I did that because it's the same thing for me. I love her writing. It is so cozy, comfy, it's easy to slide into. I love her characters. Her characters are always on the older side. I think the main characters in this one are over like 30-ish. I don't really remember, to be honest, but they are older, which as someone who just turned 30, I appreciate because you don't see that a lot. I feel like I'm always reading books where the main characters are 19 or 21 or like 25, which is fine, but I'm not at that age anymore, so I do want to read books that feature characters closer to my age, and her characters are always just so quirky and witty, and they're just so easy to love, which is something that I adore. That's something that Darcy Coats, who is one of my favorite authors, probably my favorite author, has, that it's just something that makes me love her writing so much, and I think the same way about T. Kingfisher. Her characters are just so lovable and so cute. So in this book, we're following the main character who is inheriting this estate from her uncle who has recently passed, and these relatives are trying to stop her from getting this inheritance. They want the money, they want everything. They don't want her to get anything. They want it all. And she finds this sword, and when the sword is unsheathed, a man comes out of it. And he ends up helping her, and they get on this wild journey, and so much like chaos and just like funny things happen. There's also some romance between her and the sword man, and it was so cute. I devoured it so quickly. I love this world so much, which is why I bought the Saint of Steel series. I think that's what it's called, by T. Kingfisher. I've already read the first book in that series, and it's set in the same universe with the same like stuff kind of happening. So I really like that, and the world was just so interesting, and just liked everything. I just had such a good time, and I can't stop thinking about this one. So I feel like it's more of a 5 star, honestly. So, but it is a top contender to be one of my favorite books this year. A book that I just recently read, and I have to include it because I was a sobbing mess by the end of it, and that is The Fallen Star by Claudia Gray. This is part of the Star Wars High Republic series. This is in phase 1. That is the phase that I have just finished. There are 3 phases if you're not familiar, and this is a sequel to The Rising Storm by Scott Cavan, I believe is the author's name. So this is showing what happens after that book, and then there's a 3rd book that is kind of following this one. It's like a little trilogy, but this one had me devastated at the end. I was just crying. Justin was laughing at me because I just had tears running down my face. I have been really liking the High Republic series because I am a big Star Wars fan, and I just wanted more after watching the movies and the shows a zillion times, and I decided to turn to the books, and I've read some other like prequel stories and other books like that, but I really wanted to try the High Republic because this is a different like time period, and it just has different enemies, and I have liked it so far. It took me a while to get into it, but this is by far my favorite book from phase 1. I'm very excited to start phase 2 and continue on and see, you know, what other books I really enjoy. But this one has been my favorite so far. It was devastating and heartbreaking, which is not new for Star Wars fans, because if you like Star Wars, you know the series is devastating and heartbreaking. So obviously, because I was sobbing, I had to include it in a favorites list. One book I know for sure will make it on my end of the year favorites. Like, I 100% know this book will make it on that list, and it's probably my favorite book of the year, and I don't think anything will really beat it out of that spot, and that is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I have talked about this book so many times. I know so many people are talking about this book for good reason. This is a continuation in the Hunger Games series. This comes after Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but before the Hunger Games. You're following Haymitch and the 50th Games, or the second quarter quell. You get to see his story, and there was just so many connections made with this one, and it made the story even more devastating. It was just beautiful and wonderful. It was a heartbreaking read, like every Hunger Games book has been, to be honest, but I loved it. It surpassed all my expectations of it, and I will read anything Suzanne Collins writes because I think she is so masterful at storytelling, and what she has to say is so impactful, and I love her books. So yeah, this is probably going to be my #1 of the year. I won't be surprised. You shouldn't either if you see it at the end of the year. One book that really surprised me, and I just keep thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, and it was a shock. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. And that is The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This is a cannibal story, which I love a good cannibal story. This is also heartbreaking and devastating. Do you see the theme going on here? I do love a good heartbreaking and devastating book. I do like to cry. I cry a lot. But this is following the story of this girl and her mom, and they live out in forest, kind of very isolated, and they invite hikers, lost people into their house, and they, you know, give them a place to rest, give them some food, and then they kill them and eat them. You're reading it from the perspective of the daughter, and she's so young, and the way she sees what's going on and how she understands what's happening is so interesting. Her relationship with her mother is very complicated, and I love a cannibal story that can make me sad. Brother by Anya Alborn is a cannibal story that did that. Tender is the Flesh did that. I'm a sucker for a cannibal story that breaks my heart. This book definitely did that. The ending is gut-wrenching, and it was like a punch to the stomach, but I loved every second of it. I thought it was so beautifully written, and I just had the best time reading this one, which is so weird because I just didn't think I was gonna like this one at all, but it was exactly the type of book that I like, and I loved it. Let's talk about another series that I started this year, and that is the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I love this series so much. I've already bought the other 2 books in the series that are out. The other one, the 5th one is coming out this year, I believe, so I will be getting that immediately. But I fell in love with the first book. I read the second one recently. Also really loved this. It is such an interesting murder mystery story, but there's so much more to it than just the murder mystery. You're following 4 friends who are in their 70s, and they have this Thursday Murder Club where they get together and they talk about true crime, murder, crime, whatever. And then an actual murder occurs and they decide to solve it. And that's what you're doing in this series, is you're following them, solving these crimes and getting involved in these mysteries. And the characters are so lovable. They are so cute, and their friendship is so pure and sweet, and it's so funny, but also kind of sad because they are elderly, so they do talk about, you know, dying and their friends dying and people around them dying, and I mean, it's just a different part of life that I don't necessarily like to think about. But, you know, things like dementia and stuff like that, it is talked about in here, and it's very hopeful as well because they are in their 70s, but they're doing things and they're living life to the fullest, and it's really beautiful, and it's heartwarming. Okay, I love it. The mystery aspect is always done so well, but the characters are really just what gets me. I love this series. I can definitely see this being in my end of the year favorites as well. The first book I actually read in 2025 was a 5-star, and that was Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. Again, trying to read more fantasy, so I started the year off with a fantasy book because I was just very excited. This is kind of pitched as Padme and Anakin from Star Wars, but getting a happy ending, which is basically the reason why I picked it up, because I love Padme and Anakin, and I would love them to have their happy ending. So this one's very interesting. It has dragons in it. It has found family in it. It is so freaking cute. The romance is mwah. Caden is so Anakin. I mean, I know that the characters were modeled after Padme and Anakin, but he is so Anakin that, like, I can't help but picture Anakin when I read this book. And I just ate this up. I ate it up. Eowyn, the main character, is trying to seek vengeance. She's trying to free her dragons that were taken from her. And it's just like Padme and Anakin, but edged up. And I loved that. I loved it so much. This was amazing. I know the sequel is coming out soon, which I cannot wait to get my hands on because I will be reading it immediately. Oh my god, it's another fantasy. I know, I told you, I'm taking this fantasy experiment very seriously. So the next book on this list is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang, which is the second book in the Poppy War trilogy, which I know is funny to have a sequel in here and not the first book. I did love the first book. The Poppy War trilogy was incredible beginning to end. I loved it. It was devastating and it was a lot, okay? It was very intense to read. But this book, it had all the things I loved about the first book and the third book, but like just in one book, and it was just perfect. The ending is horrible. It is absolutely horrible, which we all know I love a devastating ending. So this leaves you off on the worst possible end, which makes no sense sometimes, but I loved it. My jaw was on the floor. I mean, it just got 10 times more intense from the Poppy War to this one. I love the direction the story takes. I love seeing how they act and what the thought process is with Rin. I loved every second of this book. It was so freaking good, and I knew I had to give it 5 stars. So I loved the entire Poppy War trilogy, but I have to admit that this one is my favorite out of the 3. I just think it had all the elements in one, and it just made a perfect read. Taking a turn into a different direction, next is Clyde Nestra by Costanza Casati, which I know, I'm switching things up. This has put me in a Greek mythology mood. I have bought more Greek mythology books because I'm in it. This book, I gave it a 4-star at the beginning. Then I upped it to a 4.5. Then I kept thinking about it and I was like, no, it's a 5. It's a 5. It's a 5-star. I love this book. It is about the story of Clytemnestra, obviously, who is Helen of Troy's sister. So if you are familiar with the Battle of Troy and the story of Achilles, and you know that kind of thing, then you know Helen of Troy. So this is her sister. This is her story. It's talking about her upbringing. It's talking about her marriages. It's talking about how she gets married to Agamemnon, and then it does go into the Battle of Troy and what goes on there and kind of her part in that, because it is a part that you don't see emphasized a lot. I'm a sucker for a feminist retelling of a story, and this was so well done. It was also heartbreaking. Do you see a theme? This was devastating. I was so upset all the time while reading it. I was getting so frustrated because Clyde Nestra kept getting the raw end of the deal, and I was getting so mad for her, but the book is so freaking good, and I love her. I love Clyde Nestra. I think this book gave me an appreciation for a Greek mythological character that I just didn't really think a lot about, or maybe just, you know, didn't really appreciate in the way I should, and I love this. And now I'm on a Greek mythology kick, so this was amazing. Would it be a favorites list if I didn't include Darcy Coats? Probably not. The Vengeful Dead, which is the last book in the Gravekeeper series. I'm so sad that this series is over. It was so good. Every book just got better and better from beginning to end. I loved getting to see these characters in every book. I loved them so freaking much. I just loved the time that I got to spend with them. I loved seeing their personalities come out. I loved seeing their friendship bloom and the romance bloom. Everything was so special with this series. And the ending was so good. It's better than I could have asked for, because I was kind of nervous, but I knew Darcy Coats wouldn't lead me astray. So I was like hopeful that it was gonna end in a way that I liked, but I was also nervous. But this had a really great ending. It was such a good conclusion. I love this series so much, and I really want Darcy to do another series, because both of her series that I've read, this one and Black Winter, are just so amazing. So I want her to do more series, because I think they're really good when she does them. So of course this had to make it into my top. I love Darcy. I love this series. I can't recommend it enough. Okay, and we're gonna finish the list off with a big one. One that I was scared to read. One that I kept putting off because of the size, which if you know me, you know I don't like big books. So I had put this one off, but I read it this year. I wish I had read it last year, but I did read it this year, and that is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. Now, is this a devastating read? Yes, you guessed it. Okay, I have a problem. Apparently I love books that shatter my heart into hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces. This is also a historical horror. That is also a reason why I put it off, because historical horror doesn't always work out for me. I am trying to get better at reading historical fantasy, historical horror, historical whatever. I am trying to get better at that, and I do want to read more of it, because I do feel like the more I read, the more I find I do end up actually liking it. This one, I mean, it's a big boy. It's a big baby, okay? It's huge. But it reads really quick. Mostly because it is so horrific. Now, there are ghosts in this. The reformatory that the young boy in the story gets sent to is haunted, and he can see the ghosts. So there is a supernatural element to the story, but really the actual horror is really just everything else. The treatment of the boys at the reformatory, just the setting itself is horrific. I mean, everything that happens to the main character is just, it's just so sad. It's so sad. It just broke my heart into a million pieces. It does have a good ending though, which I love. Tananarive Due does do a good ending, because The Good House also had a really incredible ending, which made me love it. This did make me cry. Shocker, I know. The best way I like to describe this book is horror and heart. It has all the horror involved in it, but it's also so sweet and heartwarming and sad and gut-wrenching at the same time, which I know doesn't sound like it makes sense, but if you know what I'm talking about, you will understand. But this was beautiful. Tananarive Due is so incredibly talented. Everything I've read from her so far I've really enjoyed, and this might be my new favorite, maybe? The Good House is my favorite so far, but this one might be my favorite from her now because I really loved it. Yeah, don't let the size intimidate you. Don't let the historical aspect intimidate you. It's a really incredible story, and she does it so magnificently that this one will probably also stay a top favorite till the end of the year. Okay, my friends, those are the 10 books so far that I think are my absolute favorites of the year. I know there are some surprising books on the list. I know. I'm turning things upside down. I'm switching things up, trying to read more genres, trying to try different things out. So hopefully you enjoyed this list from me. I know it's very different. Hopefully you enjoyed this little mid-year check-in kind of chatty video. If you did, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if any of these books are on your TBR, if you've read them, if you love them, if you hate them. Let me know how your 2025 reading is going so far. And if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to my channel. We can become friends, talk about books, horrifying books, thrilling books, romance books, manga, fantasy, all kinds of things now that I read because I'm exploring genres. And with that being said, I hope you are having a great day, night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!